I'm Jake Lynch, and I want to tell you about my novel, Blood on the Stone. Imagine a world where sectarian divisions are inflamed and exploited for political gain. A world where evidence and due process are the last lines of defence against the hatred and fury of the mob. OK, so maybe that's not too much of a stretch, but if those are the unpleasant facts of life today, then they applied in spades in the England of 1681, and that's the setting for my story. King Charles II brings the English Parliament to Oxford amid a security scare over a so-called popish plot against the crown. Now, history would later expose that as fraudulent, but at the time it was used to justify a crackdown against a persecuted minority, England's few remaining Catholics. Only here's the thing, then as now, not everyone wanted to go along with that way of doing business. Some instead wanted to apply standards of justice and fair dealing. One of them is my hero, Luke Sandys, chief officer of the Oxford bailiffs and the nearest thing in the period to a modern-day detective. Most of his duties tend towards the humdrum, chasing up unpaid liquor licences. But as MPs gather in the city, one of them is found stabbed to death. William Harbord, leader of an extremist Protestant group calling for ever harsher treatment of Catholics. Luke soon realises he's in a race against time. He must solve the murder before it can be used to provoke the crowd and trigger a bloodbath. Along the way, he has to rescue a young woman from a gruesome ritualistic death and thwart a treasonous plot. How does he do all that? Well, help me to publish the novel and you can find out. This is publication by crowdfunding. You don't buy the novel once it's published. Instead, you pledge in advance to buy it when it's published. Pledge a little higher and you can have your own signed special edition with your name on the back, or pledge more and you can get more. Join me here in Sydney for dinner, or when I'm back in the UK for a walking tour of Oxford, where we can see some of the historic buildings featured in Blood on the Stone and chat further about the ideas in the novel. England in the 17th century, Oxford in particular, was a crucible of the so-called scientific revolution, which fed in turn into the political values of the European Enlightenment. It's often said that today those Enlightenment values are under threat. Now sure, Blood on the Stone is intended primarily to entertain. That's why it's a mystery as well as a history. But it does so hopefully in a way that reminds us how people have stood up for those values across the ages.